First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you today about the new work at the data center and introduce to you the Shared Island Biosecurity and Invasive Species Initiative. We are very much at the start of this program. It's a 5-year program of work, but we're only in year 1. And I just want to introduce everything, what we're going to be doing over the next few years, but also give you a little bit of a feel for why we're doing this. I want to acknowledge our funders. So obviously this is led by the National Biodiversity Data Centre and we're funded by the Heritage Council. It's a cross-border initiative. We're funded by NIA and MPWS, and we're also funded by the Shared Island Initiative under the Government of Ireland. What is the role of the National Biodiversity Data Centre? We are essentially the National Record Centre for Ireland. We contribute data to the Global Biodiversity Information Facility about all of Ireland's biodiversity, including invasive and non-native species. We maintain a lot of online resources, so we have two key websites that I want to point out, which is our invasives.ie, where you can go to for information about invasive species, including prevention, policy, education awareness, and much more. We also have the map system as well, so please do take some time to familiarize yourself with that. When a new invasive species arrives in Ireland, we also issue the alerts. So how do you know what species to be aware of? Well, we will issue the alerts. We support public bodies in Ireland, particularly MPWS, in compliance with EU invasive alien species regulation. I will point out that we have almost 7 million records on Ireland, on our database at this moment in time. And of invasive species, we have almost 92,000 records. So we're building this a database over time. This is free to download and it's free for anybody to access, including members of the public. So it's becoming an incredibly important resource. Let's take a step back and focus on invasive species issues. Where did this start? So back in 2006, funded by the National Parks and Wildlife Service and the Environmental Heritage Service, as it was known back then, commissioned Queen's University Belfast to review invasive species across Ireland and Northern Ireland. This was a real starting point, and from that it led to a project called Invasive Species Ireland, which led to a lot of work in this area, including EPA funded work known as the EPA Strive. Today we have gone from a situation of very limited policy and legislation focused on invasive species across Ireland to now having an EU regulation. We now have that transposed into Irish law, which sets out invasive species of union concern, but also sets out invasive species of national concern. There are similar regulations or legislation in Northern Ireland as well. So we have, broadly speaking, harmonised legislation on the island of Ireland. So that is a major benefit to the policy and the protection of Ireland from invasive species. Today we now have GBF Target 6, which requires signatory states, including Ireland and the UK, to prevent the introduction of priority invasive non-native species and eradicate non-native species. Also to take action on islands as well. So you can see that we're building towards a significant piece of legislation. We have strategies. We have Ireland's 4th biodiversity strategy, and plus we have a whole host of research underway. Again, I do point out the EPA Strive, and I point out the work of the Water Forum as well, which is instrumental to pushing forward work in this area. How do invasive species get here? As was alluded in the previous presentation, recreational water users is one pathway of introduction. Horticulture, movement of soil and stone, aquaculture, particularly in the marine environment, can introduce species, either contaminants or indeed the species themselves can become invasive. In Ireland, we're getting a lot of species being introduced to the wild that are pets. So people would buy a pet species that would suddenly become a nuisance to them in their home, and they would release it into the wild. So there are instances of that happening. It's important to point out we're not combating all non-native species. There are a whole host of non-native species that our economy depends on, and these are not a problem. We are focused very much on the high and medium impact species. This work was carried out in 2013, but is now due an update as part of our work to establish which are the high and medium and lower impact species, and that will be carried out over the next couple of years. I want to highlight some species of concern. Invasive American mink, introduced obviously through the fur trade, escaped or were deliberately released when people ought to have known better, and now having detrimental impacts right across the island of Ireland, particularly around lakes in the west of Ireland, predating on ground nesting birds and fish as well. That chick did escape. We also have new species of flatworms. So you have the New Zealand flatworm, a species of union concern. We have the Australian flatworm, and as of the last couple of months, we have a new species of flatworm introduced to the island of Ireland. Research carried out by CEDAR in Northern Ireland has indicated that this is driving the loss of the native earthworm in Cultraw, close to where they work. This species is spread by introduced originally by horticulture, so it gets small, found in pots. Any of you have gardens should watch out for this species and will become problematic for the native earthworm. But there are no eradication measures possible for this species. Some of you will be familiar with Lagersyphon major, a species native to southern Africa. You will see here the work in Loch Corrib, where it was pristine habitat and followed by the invasion. Work carried out by Joe Caffrey and Inland Fisheries Ireland was instrumental into researching the control of this species. And Inland Fisheries Ireland are investing in the management of this species to prevent the economic impact, which would be significant in that local area, plus the environmental impact as well. Everyone in this room is probably already familiar with rhododendron, Japanese knotweed, and Gunnera, giant rhubarb. These species are particularly damaging in woodland habitats and bog habitats, but they're also damaging in waterways. So you can see where they will crowd out the river systems, which can impact on native invertebrates, which can impact on food chains as a result. Himalayan balsam is another species of concern. Some people believe that this is a useful food source for bees, not native pollinators, but honeybees, but actually it's akin to McDonald's. So then you end up in a situation where this annual plant dies back, leaving the riverbank bare in winter, which again impacting on native ecology. The zebra mussel is a species which first arrived in Ireland in the 90s, and now you can see how far it's spread. It's even from looking at the maps, you can see it's connected to our waterways. You can pick out the Shannon. It can impact on native mussels, but it also drives ecosystem change. All of you will be familiar with the work going on in Lough Neagh at this moment in time. You will all be familiar with the link to eutrophication and the link to climate change. What people might be less familiar with is the role zebra mussels play in this. And research published by Queen's University Belfast back in 2023 showed the link between zebra mussel and the blue-green algae. Zebra mussels clear the water column. They preferentially feed on the beneficial algae, excluding the blue-green algae, which can lead to these blooms. And this is something that was predicted when zebra mussels first turned up, but I don't think that I would have predicted it to have been as serious as it has turned out to be. Another similar species is the quagga mussel. Again, you can see the Shannon is a key area. This species can form reefs in deeper areas, so it can expand the impact associated with invasive mussels. Hopefully some of you have heard of Asian clam. Again, the Shannon, picking out the Shannon there. There may be a record in Cork that is not showing up on this database, and we're looking to follow up on that. But you will see that it forms incredibly dense reefs in the water, in the riverbeds. This excludes all native species. So if you have any biological metrics looking at water quality, they are gone. This particular species can form, in some areas, there's a buildup of the shells, which then leads to an increased flooding risk in certain areas. We have not seen this in Ireland yet, but it may happen. Hopefully some of you will know about crayfish plague, a species introduced by maybe contaminated fishing gear or contaminated boats, or even associated with non-native crayfish. So this species disease will impact on the native white-claw crayfish, and the Marine Institute is leading a lot of work in this area, working with us and others. A species that I very much hope we can keep out of Ireland is the killer shrimp. It's another Pontocaspian species like a whole host of non-native species. If this arrives in Ireland, it will predate fish eggs, it will predate native invertebrates, and be another driver of ecosystem change. This species is now present in Britain, and it will, if we are not diligent in our biosecurity, it will arrive in Ireland. It can survive outside of water for about 4 days. So it's important to carry out good biosecurity. It is not just an environmental impact, it is an economic impact. So work carried out as part of Invasive Species Ireland in 2013 estimated that the impact is about 200,000 euros each and every year. Correcting that figure by inflation, it's about $250 million each and every year. It impacts all sectors, well, not all, quite a lot of sectors of our economy. Work produced by Professor Helen Roy, who is with CEH. She led on the IPBES global review of invasive alien species, showed that this is a growing threat. It is not going away. All data is showing that the impact, the risks associated with invasive species are increasing over time. So we need to invest now to try to protect the island of Ireland. Climate change is going to be a particularly complex issue. Harking back to the zebra mussel example in Lough Neagh, warmer waters can lead to increased impacts, which has been a factor in the Lough Neagh. There are species that we're worried about, so blue crab off Dublin Bay, currently not believed to be, the Irish environment is not believed to be suitable for this species, but as climate change kicks in, the Irish environment may become warmer and more suitable for breeding. Now, introducing the work of the data centre over the next 5 years. As I mentioned, it is a partnership approach funded by NIA, MPWS, the Shared Island, Department of Housing, Local Government, and the Heritage Council. We have 4 key work areas. So the Shared Island work as a package. We have our marine non-Indigenous species as another package, and we have our general engagement on invasive species, plus the core work of the data centre that we're leading on. And we formulated this into a work plan. That work plan has 7 work streams, with program management is the one in the middle that is missing. But we want to improve data collection. We want to ensure that data that experts are collecting ends up on the mapping system. We want to improve citizen science data as well, keeping in mind that citizen science are a good eyes and ears for new incursions into Ireland. I will run through that very quickly. I do want to highlight one area of work funded by the Department of Housing is a new marine invasive species strategy for the island of Ireland. The primary driver for work is the MSFD, and we have formed a steering committee which Dr. Robert Wilkes from the EPA sits on as well. We have we're developing a new framework for invasive species. So this is a key ambition is a data-driven decisions. So basically ensuring that the data we're collecting can inform effective decisions on the island of Ireland and inform good biosecurity. We can't do everything everywhere all at once. We need to be strategic and we need to be targeted and we need to be able to measure our impact. So we are developing the tools for that. We're rolling out new ArcGIS systems, which should hopefully allow greater sharing of data between organizations. So MPWS or the EPA can share information with us or vice versa. We are developing a unified approach to risk assessment. So risk assessment is it's a rather dry and technical approach to decision making. It is required by jurisdictions to defend and support their actions and support their regulatory decisions. The European Union have set certain standards for risk assessment, and we are working to develop those systems for the island of Ireland. So that is about setting up all of the required systems, the governance, developing the tools, looking out at what's coming our way so that we can prioritize our decisions, and then training people on how to carry out risk assessment. As part of this work, we're developing a catalogue, we're redeveloping the catalogue of Ireland's invasive non-native species. So this was initially developed back in 2013, and we need an authoritative source of where to go to find information about where Ireland's non-native species are. And this work has been led by my colleague, Dr. Anne Haig, and she will hopefully have that figure over the next couple of years. It's important to say that our database shows us about 1,161 records of non-native species, whereas the global database shows that there's 1,300. We need to know what that figure is so that we can start prioritizing effectively and making sure that everything is up to space. We are developing a unified approach to pathway management across the island of Ireland, developing pathway action plans on a shared island basis so that we can ensure that the pathways are managed effectively. As part of this, we're using the Convention on Biological Diversity as our framework to prioritize the pathways and then putting in place appropriate management plans. We are developing contingency plans. So one particular species of concern is the Asian hornet, also known as the yellow-legged hornet. It is a species that is on its way to Ireland. It's spreading across Europe at this moment in time. And we are developing a shared island roadmap for that species. We are strengthening collaboration on invasive species. So one of my key objectives today is to strengthen that collaboration. But we're also working with partners. We have, for example, working with the GARD IAS project in Europe, and we're developing our own partnerships on looking at eDNA as one particular example and trying to set standards for eDNA. If a species is found at the top of a river, where does that mean? And you have a sampling protocol at the bottom, how do you display that on a map? One key objective is unifying our approach to campaigns. So we have 3 campaigns, Check, Clean, Dry, Be Plant-Wise, and Be Pet-Wise. So we're reviewing those campaigns right now and aiming to bring forward a series of package of work around those campaigns so everyone, the members of the public and technical stakeholders can adopt these measures. We've developed our Invasive Species Forum. We had our first forum in Dublin in November last year, and the next stakeholder forum will be in Belfast in November of this year. 2 final calls to action before we conclude. First off, we're reviewing surveillance and monitoring programs active on the island of Ireland. This is so that we can detect invasive species at an early stage and hopefully implement management measures. So if you are aware of any surveillance and monitoring programs that should be part of this review, I would please invite you to email me the details or reach out to me. So it would be great to include that. So that work has been led by APEM at this moment in time. And finally, we are all ecologists, we're all passionate about the environment. We have a role to play. We can prevent the spread of crayfish plague, we can prevent the spread of other invasive species. So I'd encourage you to adopt the Check, Clean, Dry approach. And if you have not done so already, please adopt your own organizational policy position on invasive species.